Friday morning. I know it's a very lazy day today, the rain and all. Am I audible?
Yes.
Cool. So I'm Shilpa. I'll be your host today along with Vishnu. Uh, so how many of you have heard Converge? Is it the first time you're hearing about Converge? So Converge is basically a forum for technologists, ideators, PAs, PMs, CEOs, entrepreneurs, everybody to connect, discuss, and come up with ideas. Discuss ideas. That's it. So let's get started with the event. I'll give you quick details. The Wi-Fi, if you want to connect to the event Wi-Fi, the details are there in the wall over there. If you want to grab some water, it is there on the right side. If you go straight, yeah, the telephone booth is on the right side. You can pick up any stationery if you want. It's there at the registration desk, and washrooms are at the end. So yeah, that's it. I just wanted to quickly get a check. How many of you are devs or QAs here? Can you raise your hands? Okay, and how many of you are BAs or product owners or product managers? Awesome. Project managers? Okay. Entrepreneurs, CIOs, CXOs, anything? Rest? I mean, are you like lecturers? What are you? Yeah. Students? How many of you are students? Okay. Cool. Looks like a good mix. So we'll get started with the event.
Thank you, Shilpa. So as Shilpa said, I'm Vishnu. I'm a PA over here in Converge. Next, we have a keynote speech by Madhu. So Madhu likes to call herself a product enthusiast. She's extensively been working on diverse software products and is highly passionate about different market problems, building great products, defining product vision, and a strategy to make products that align with the organization needs. So I request Madhu.
Hello, good morning everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, good. So thanks for joining us on this rainy day. I know it's a little, on Saturday you're here. Good to have you here. So you must have gone through the theme and you might have found it exciting to understand what business transformations are all about, right? So in the current context, you see Tesla, you see Amazon, you see Flipkart, Snapdeals. Success or failure, but there has been a transformational journey behind the scenes. And if you see, in most of these cases, there has been a sequence in the way they have actually progressed. Let's take Uber, right? I mean, this is the most common example what everybody probably would have used, but I'll still use the same just to connect the current world scenario. If you look at Uber, we know that Uber is used predominantly for requesting a ride, and we know that its market is in setting up the ease of transport from one place to the other, right? But how many of you know about Uber Eats? Any hands up? Uber Eats? Have you used Uber Eats? Okay, okay, great. It's not yet in Hyderabad though, but predominantly in the world around Uber Eats has already been out. Look at what Uber has been doing. The vision of Uber earlier was to say that, hey, we are a transportation, making transportation ease is the motto of their company. But 2015 and beyond, things have changed. They've redefined their vision, mission, and strategy. Now, the vision is to say that they are the best, or they want to be the best mobility and logistic platform in the world. Which means that Uber Eats will be, or is, a food delivery platform, which is a threat to the Swiggies, to the Food Pandas of the market right now. Think about Meru's, Dot Cabs, Easy Cabs that we have used, right? Do we see them anymore? Do we hear them? The taxi for sure. They were all there. They are still there, but they are playing the catching up game, right? So we know what will happen if we do not transform our business, and that's where we are right now, to be able to think differently, to see how we can actually go ahead and transform our business models. So in this game, if I see, I'll classify predominantly or put every firm which will follow probably 4 different stages in this transformation game. The first is novice players. Let's say you're an entrepreneur or you start with a product, putting your product into the market, right? You will have probably some online presence, have your offline presence as well for distribution and so on. This is novice players. The second stage is to go into the vertical integration. Right? How do I understand my customer behavior? How do I engage and collaborate with my suppliers, with my customers, with my competitors, with my technology teams, with my organization? So every one of us will have to think big, start small, and get started, right? So to have, you will have to wait, stay tuned to listen into our speakers lined up next. I'm excited to listen into them, and I hope all of you are equally excited as I am, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Madhu. Well, that's piqued my interest anyway. I really hope you guys are also charged up. Next, we have Jayesh, who's going to be our next speaker. He's a digital market principal for us over here for India market. So, Jayesh, I'm not going to take more of the time.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Jayesh Ghadge. Would you be even relevant? So let's go. Anyone who wants to say what he or she thinks what they would be doing 5 years from now, like 2022, what role would you be playing? What's your ambition? Anyone? Can we have a few mics around so that folks can answer this question and people can listen? Hello.
Yeah, hello, Kate. For the next 5 years, I want to become a data scientist. So right now I'm a big data engineer. So my main areas of focus is cognitive technology, and deep learning, and computer vision. So next 5 years, hopefully I'll be in that.
Have you, or can you tell me why? You told me what? Why?
So the reason is again, as Madhupala mentioned earlier, so all companies is transforming 4 phases. Digital champion is the one 4th phase. I mean, thinking of next 5 years it will be. So I mean, like coming to the digital champions, all digital technologies, the mainly dealing with the data analytics and machine learning, artificial intelligence.
You can pass it behind us.
So this is Pawan.
What do you do now? And then
At this point of time, what I am doing and what I'll be doing is the same actually. So it is like I'm in the process exactly at this point. So my thinking is my work is related to like bringing the technology easy for the government using his intelligence. So it is something like I am working on the artificial intelligence thing, where a regular brain, regular common man who doesn't know the technology well, by using his inputs in his regional language, he should be able to do anything the technology the person who knows the technology do. So that is my lifetime goal. So that is what I'll be achieving in the next 3 to 5 years.
There's one more person who wanted to talk. Yeah, I want to make it interactive, okay? So this is not my presentation. So the best part about presenting is when you don't have to present. When the audience makes a presentation for you. So looking forward to interaction. Go ahead.
Hello, sir. This is Arun. I'm working as big data engineer in Cogentics. So definitely, I cannot switch my career to HR or any other side. I have to walk in my own series of designations. But apart from what I work in future, I have a thought to check the health, how many steps we walk. Everyone are thinking, what's the next step in order to understand how the technology is taking its route and everything. So I'm in a thought process to what to design next, so that so I'll be the part of the turning stage also. So that's the trending one which I have.
Anybody else wants to speak? No. I'm able to hear you. I don't know what else.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm presently working as a software developer in a startup. So my aim is to build my own product, which I'm started working on that, which is basically needs to make the customer satisfaction on the hair stylist application. For example, if you go for any hair salon or something, right, you won't find that you will be having pictures or something just showing up, but that won't match with our visual. So I'm just working on that algorithms and everything. So it's to have my own product after 5 years and to make not only in India but everywhere all over the world.
Yeah, one more point and then I'll get to where I was going with this question.
Hey Jesh, my name is Amol. I work as a product manager with Electronic Arts. So, first, the context of the question is like, when do you start thinking about the 5 years? When I started off with my BTech, at that time, whatever I thought of, I was thinking of opening a coaching institute for JA Mathematics. 5 years down the line, that didn't happen. It was not like I was unhappy. I just found another path which was much more fulfilling. Then I thought I would probably go into analytics, then ended up in product management. So the crux is, the future is uncertain. What you like today, you might not like tomorrow. But you have to bet your time or investment in terms of learning and all into things that will most likely last. And so, for example, one thing that I'm pretty sure of, at least for next 10, 15 years, is people will be able to build stuff hands-on, will always be relevant. And probably I would like, so these are the kind of things I'm betting on, that, okay, I would like to be in a situation that if I can do nothing else, I can get down hands-on and build something.
Thanks. People are not sleeping. They are early. The reason I asked this question is because I truly believe, and I spend a lot of time with CEOs in India. Most of our portfolio in India Market and ThoughtWorks is trying to help CEOs visualize the future. Second thing, which is very, very important, is I think the definition of workplace itself will change, which means somebody is thinking that you do a technology shift and jump. Nature of the workplace itself is changing, which means new generation is coming into the workforce and they don't believe in a 9 to 5 job, which means the whole concept of a 9 to 5 job will slowly start changing, right? You would have heard about a lot of crowdsourcing platforms, people becoming consultant, freelancing, a bunch of things, right? So this whole idea of give me a job description and we'll go and hire that person with that skill is somehow, I feel, going to get challenged in the next 5 years. What we need in the next 5 years are people who can thrive in the complexity of technology moving as fast, complexity of the workplace changing, complexity of the potential India carries. India is at the cusp of leapfrogging from other countries because you're not going to follow that pattern. We jumped straight from landline to so we jumped straight into the mobile era. We didn't have to go to the landline era. Most of you, I guess, looking at your faces and age, would have directly been digital natives in terms of experiencing internet through a mobile. And most of with a bunch of things, which means services will become seamless. You don't have to go and buy insurance. Maybe insurance can be just automatically calculated basis your behavior, your health. Right? So my insurance premium and your insurance premium might be very different just because of how you take care of yourself. And you don't even probably have to do anything about it, right? Because you're leaving a digital trail of data behind because you're measuring everything. Refrigerators will tell you what to eat, what to cook, because it knows what is there inside the refrigerator. We're getting into this world of smart equipment. Right? ThoughtWorks right now is engaged with a company which is building a platform for ambient computing. What's ambient computing? Where equipments have become so smart that they talk to each other and they take decisions just through algorithms. Where the AC would know exactly when you're going to leave office because your geo-positioning will tell that you're going to come to the home in such and such time and it will switch on. It will switch on the light to define the mood that you are in because you're also measuring your everything, mood, health and everything, right? So ambient computing will become quite prevalent. Now if you think of ambient computing, again, there's no interaction. So how do you design for a no interaction scenario when everything is happening in the background? How many people know this? Can you raise your hand? How many people knew about this before coming in here? So this is a product from IPSoft, which is capable of reading in 8 hours years or decades of call center data and taking over the entire call center without a single human intervention and behave as if you are talking to a human being on the other side of the phone. Emilia is the first digital employee of organizations which could do this thing, which is more repetitive in nature. Imagine it starts writing requirements. What do BAs do after that? Imagine it starts defining product roadmap depending on what's happening in the market. What do people do as a living when systems take over, right? So it's scary, but it's also important to know what you're going to do in the next 5 years when some of these things hit, right? How many of you had seen this photograph before coming in? This is the world's first 3D printed car, completely 3D printed car. It's functional, it's not a prototype, it's a functional 3D printed car. Many of us have seen sci-fi movies. This is the first robot that you can think of. Now come to think of it, who's writing the ethics of this car? There's a person in the car and there are 3 students or kids in front of the car. So who's going to be saved by the car? So somebody like you and me are writing the ethics of how this car should behave. Business analysis or data or algorithms. What it means is we ourselves are changing as human beings because some of these things are things that you have just adopted and some of these things you will adopt as you go along. And if we are evolving, and this is the first time in human history where technology is moving faster than what businesses can do to bring those technologies to you. Because it's no longer the domain of big businesses to bring innovation. Smaller setups with 1 or 2 people, somebody is trying to build a platform on a beauty product, right? It can be done by 2 people. You don't need 1,000 people organization to bring about disruption. 2 people can reimagine the world. I'm sure 2 people reimagined the world by bringing in Google 10 years back. Similarly, there are 2 people sitting somewhere in some garage reimagining how we do things. And now is where enterprises are finding it difficult to cope up with it. Because by the time you think of doing something and bring something out to market, time has already passed. So you have to surpass what you thought and you have to pivot as you go along almost on a daily basis. Parallel to this, ThoughtWorks is thinking about What's changing in the tech world? Because finally, all of us are technologists, right? We live with technology at the core of whatever we do. We get paid for thinking about stuff in the technology domain, right? So we are taking bet on 5 things. Why these 5 things? There could be 20, but we think these 5 kind of encompasses what's happening around us. So whatever images I showed kind of relate to these 5 things. The 5 seismic shifts that ThoughtWorks is taking a bet on is evolving interactions, humanity augmented, rise of platforms, security, privacy, and transparency, and rise of robots. I'll spend a minute or two on each one of them. Right? Evolving interactions is about moving beyond touch. So we are going to this multimodal way of communication where you can talk to devices. If you look at kids, right, especially my kid, he's 10 years. He's fascinated by Siri. He can do blabbering with Siri more than he can talk to me these days, right? Because Siri does interesting stuff for him. And then I have another niece who is 5 years, and she thinks that you should talk to a remote because she talks to the Kindle Fire Stick or Google Fire, Amazon Fire Stick. And the other day she just picked up the remote and she wanted to change the channel by talking to the remote. For them, that is interaction. That's the world they are brought into. So we are moving beyond touch, and interactions are evolving, which means that you need to design for this philosophy. I keep talking to Sunil, who's our design head, who's here in the room, so to spend time with him. So when world goes from touch sensibilities to multimodal channels of communication, what will you design? What will you write as? But right now, you'll only become better, which means you'll have a lot more time on hand because some of the things that you do may be done automatically, and you have a lot of time to think about newer things that you could do, right? So this is a type of robot in the technology world which is coming, which will just assist you to do things better. A lot of companies have invested in big systems to bring about efficiency. So if you go back 10 years when I started my job, we were trying to sell operational efficiency solutions, ERPs, CRM, networking, data centers. Those are the kind of things that I used to sell when I started my career. Now, a lot of that investment is already sunk in for big organizations. They have their ERP system, they have their CRM system, they have a bunch of systems, right? But they are not able to abstract value out of it because they are sitting in secure data centers somewhere. They have all the customer data, but they can't process all that customer data. We believe the future world will be that of platforms. Platforms that unlock that potential of existing investment and allows organization to innovate faster and better and bring about solutions a lot more faster. A lot of you spoke about data and algorithms. What happens when data is so prevalently available? The new generation doesn't care. A lot of folks from my generation feel that we should secure our data. So I'm not on Facebook. I feel that Facebook takes my data and behaves very smartly with me by telling me what I should read. The other interesting thing is if you look at Google and do a search in India about US elections and do the same search about US elections in the US, you'll find 2 different results. Who's defining this data set? Who's thinking about privacy? Who's thinking about transparency of this data? Why is data biased? A lot of these things will become a part and parcel of everybody's job. It won't be the job of chief information security officer or security team. Whenever we are designing solutions, systems, algorithms, we'll have to start thinking from this premise. And this laws around security, privacy, and transparency are not that strongly written so far, right? Autonomous cars was a beginning, I feel, in this journey of what robots could do to our life. A lot more things will happen. If you are following the trends, a lot of people are experimenting with exoskeletons. I don't know if you've heard of exoskeletons. Exoskeletons are body armor which allows your body to do a lot more, especially when applied in warfare. You could literally perform 100 times better. But it also has another application of making people who are paraplegic walk. And experiments have shown that when they've worn exoskeletons, they have found sensation as well, where medically it's proven that once you are paraplegic, you don't have sensation. The other thing, robots are quite a .com domain, so everyone wants an app. When you dive deeper into why do you want an app, because they have an app. No longer that theory applies that they have an app, so I should have an app. I should have something which engages the customer. So this is about This is not about digital solutions. This is about leading in the world in a digital business, right? And if you look at this definition of digital business and the potential it has, right? We see the world in industrial revolution, right? Things that have happened in due course of humanity, which has changed humanity forever. The first industrial revolution was when your steam engine was, discovered or built, and that changed humanity forever because that gave rise to automation of some sort, in mechanical terms, right? Second was when we said, hey, now we can mass produce things. When we started mass producing things, it was also mass consumed. It was also mass shipped, and everyone had the same things that they dreamt about. Instead of wasting time in building one car over 6 months, you could build thousands of cars over a day. Then came robots in the manufacturing space, which completely changed the efficiency definition. Right? We could make a lot more things, a lot more faster because of robots. Now what we are into is the digital revolution, which is the fourth industrial revolution, as the World Economic Forum says. And this has unlimited possibilities. You can't put that into a framework saying that these are the 5 things digital will do, because nobody knows what digital is possible and capable of doing. And with this fourth industrial revolution, an interesting thing that is happening around in businesses is the role technology plays in today's business. So when technology came in early on, it used to be some data center and some smart guys who just do those things. They were not worried about business. And they were the elite people who were sitting in a data center doing punch cards and mainframes and stuff like that. They just cared about what problem statement they were given, and they used to work in isolation. Right? Slowly, folks from technology started collaborating with businesses and trying to find solutions that help business find a competitive advantage. Now what we are seeing, and if you've seen new roles being defined, you would have heard of Chief Digital Officer and a bunch of other new roles, right? You would have also heard of that the budgets are going away from CIOs, CTOs to CMOs and a bunch of folks at the business level. Why is that happening? Because we believe that tech has become the core of the business. Technology is not an enabler. Technology is a strategic asset for a lot of businesses, right? But when technology becomes a strategic asset, when technology becomes core, imagine a real estate company thinking that technology is the core of my business. We are working with a real estate company right now, and there's a project that we're doing from here. How do you make impacted right up, right? The speed of change, because companies have already invested in technology, in people with skills. The speed at which this is changing, you can't fire people every 3 months, because every 3 months there's something new that comes, right? You keep hiring new capabilities, or do you retrain your people? Because there's a cost to everything. So speed of change versus the speed at which you could give out solutions itself has changed. Second, the scope of tech complexity is not only with the IT departments. The scope is fairly wide. You could potentially disrupt every part of your business. And the impact is not just to your business. These days, the impact is to the ecosystem. When you take an Uber, you have a certain experience with Uber, right? Which is very seamless. You're standing there, the car automatically lands up there, you sit in the car, you get out, there's absolutely nothing you have to do. All you have to do is book a car and just get down wherever you want. Now, once you have had that experience, you would want that experience with everything that you do. When you go for shopping, you want that experience. When you go for any other interaction, you want that experience. So the impact is slightly broader. It's also broader because it's also the first time in human history where consumer tech is growing faster than business tech. So consumers have more solutions than businesses can think of bringing out. Right? The other part of impact is that you don't have to solve everything yourself with your IT teams. Sometimes you just start. So there's a great quote from the head designer of Dropbox, which says, in today's day and age, a company can only start a product or a service. It is finished by the customers. You don't have to build everything perfect where you solve everything. Secondly, you are building for the ecosystem, which means your partners are also an integral part of whatever you're building. So the impact is much more broader these days than just your company and your product and your service. Right? So now coming to a few things about what do you do with all of this, right? Each one of you is leading something in your respective spaces in your organization. So how do you lead in this complexity? How do you lead in a digital business? what is a digital business really, right? A digital business is nothing but it's an era of experimentation because nobody knows the answers. If everyone knew the answers, then it would be something that everyone does, and nobody has a competitive advantage. The fact that nobody knows what to do is the reason why everyone is experimenting, because you're throwing things out there, hoping that it will work, and then pivoting around an idea. You start with a great something, it probably translates to something else altogether by the time you get to the final product, right? Why is Amazon great? Because they truly believe that the power of Amazon is not AWS or e-commerce. The power of Amazon is in experiments. So you think about drones, right? You have seen that video of drone delivery. Delivered to you in a couple of minutes rather than one day delivery or same day delivery. That's also a patent that Amazon has applied for. So this is where a lot of companies are going to. You should read about some of these things, right? So what does it take for any one of us to thrive in this world, right? So we've been thinking about making this simpler to understand, and I'll just talk about 4 things that you could probably think of when you go out from here. And imagine a world where you are relevant in 5 years. So the reason I started this dialogue by saying what will you do in 5 years, because I truly believe that many of us will be fairly irrelevant in the next 5 years from what we are doing today. So which means you have to rediscover yourself, right? Let's dive into each one of these 4 ideas. Right? And these are not things that I have written. These are things that I have read about, and I've just abstracted into some ideas that you could take back to. One is about seeing the opportunity. Many a times we are so bogged down into the requirements given to us to solve a problem that we just put our life behind making those requirements a reality. So this is the requirements document, make a system out of it. This is what I want to see on a dashboard. Here is the data, write an algorithm for it. But the problem is that of linear thinking. And today's day and age, we are not growing linearly. Everything is growing exponentially. And we, from our schooling days till today, are a product of linear thinking. We have been taught a certain way, and we are applying education from the industrialization age into a technology age. And I feel very bad for my kid when he goes to school and comes back and is writing his exam. There's no scope for expressiveness. There's no scope for innovativeness. There's scope for only learning, and writing papers. Applied is something that we learn only in engineering when we get to engineering college. And I'm sure many people, at least I have had 2 or 3 backlogs when I started going from reading and writing things to applying things. And the world tomorrow is that of application and not of writing. So how do you unlock the potential opportunities that are there in front of you? The first thing is all of us should start thinking about what the next 5 years hold for you and for me, and start investing in building those capabilities. I think we get so caught in our day-to-day jobs that we forget that we need to read, learn, and apply ourselves in different ways. So do invest time in building new competencies, even if it means taking courses. There are a bunch of online courses available, right? So try and invest time in building new competencies beyond your current role. Second is stop thinking in a laser-focused fashion. You should start thinking systemically for your company. What does that mean from a broader impact perspective? The other thing, I don't know how many of you in your current role think economics, think finance, think where money is made. If you trace where money is made by a company, you would get to see where the potential lies. Many a times we just create solutions without even thinking whether this is of any value to the customer, to your enterprise, to your company, and stuff like that, right? So have a wider lens on what you're doing, because sometimes you might be building a solution, it might be in a silo, but there's a bigger company objective that is to be achieved. So you just widen your lens on that. Last but not the least is never lose focus on the customer. Be it any customer, your internal customer, your ecosystem, your customer's customer. Never lose focus of the customer, because what you're building is for them, not for the person who wrote the requirements document. And gone are the days when people can sit in a room and write requirements document about what they think people want. People know what they want. You need to quickly pivot around that. There are only few people in the world who can think of what people want. One of them is Steve Jobs, and I have a quote from him as well. Second thing that I think very, very passionately about, and I think most of the businesses miss this, is involving customers as a part of the journey. They involve customers far too late in the game by the time they've already invested a lot of money in building things that are not relevant when they are launched. Right? And I love this guy. I love this guy for a simple fact because he truly believes that customers don't know what they want. And most of his products are around, I think what I think is what customers want. That's arrogance, assertiveness, whatever you want to call it. But he believes that you should be so close to the customer that you should be able to tell them what they want rather than ask them what they want. Right? I'm sure when Uber started, they didn't go and do a market research about cars, availability, inventory, how people travel. They just thought there was an idea. They were so keen on solving one problem and one problem nicely that they ended up creating a platform which is a very, very different business than what their initial idea was, right? So a couple of pointers here on co-creating with customers, which I have seen work. One is don't design for a solution. Design for an experience, right? Solution will evolve itself. So what kind of experience you want to give to a customer? So when you think of Uber, I'm sure you don't think about the Uber mobile app. You think about the Uber experience. And every conference you would have gone to, you would have heard about, we want to provide an Uber experience. We work with cinema houses here in India. We work with real estate people. We want to give an Uber experience. People should walk in and just walk out, and there should be no interactions. Wouldn't that be great? Yeah, that would be great, provided that your organization is also set up that way. So when you're designing for experience, it's not about the solution. It's also about how do you organize yourself internally to be able to give that experience to you. By the time you started writing the first line of code and pivot around those ideas. Last but not the least is quickly build, test, learn, and build again. Right? Gone are the days when you build solutions 6 months and then you launch something big bang after 6 months. Right? People launch things every hour these days. Right? If you look at how many times Facebook commits code, you'll be surprised. Right? To be able to do that, you'll have to have the infrastructure in place to bring about that innovation. So most of the organizations are set up in such a way that to request a virtual machine takes, you raise a ticket and somebody will approve, then you'll go through some costing process and then you'll get a machine. By that time, hopefully, in the near future, that opportunity is lost. So how do you give the keys of innovation to people who are actually innovating rather than create these bureaucratic processes? This is the biggest thing that I talk to CEOs when we talk about organization transformation. The third point is release early and update frequently. And I think the next slide will just define what I'm trying to say. So if you're not embarrassed by the first release of your product, that means you've released too late. So release frequently. It's very, very important for people to quickly see, for you to validate your solution and then invest further. And to be able to release frequently, don't wait till you have built a perfect solution. Right? You just solve some idea that you have in mind, put it out there, take validation from customer, and then try and make it perfect. Second is remove friction from the team and invest in automation. So I'm assuming all of you have heard about the movement of DevOps, about cloud-based infrastructure and stuff like that. A lot of companies find it difficult to get there because they've invested so heavily in data centers of their own that it doesn't have the capability to move to the cloud. So we keep telling CEOs to unbundle all of that and make it easier for people to be able to innovate. And automation goes a long way because it takes the human error and human element out of it, both from the DevOps or test automation or any kind of automation perspective. So wherever you think automation can add value, please go ahead and automate. Last but not the least, celebrate failures. And this is the bigger problem with innovation in enterprises these days, that if you fail, you will be reprimanded. And the problem with not allowing people to fail is no innovation can happen unless you fail. Right? Which brings me to another interesting quote. You only have to get it right once. So don't worry about failure. And this is a cultural nuance. This is not something that you can say, okay, I'll allow for failures, and then you'll go and say, hey, we've done 3 experiments. Where is, give me a business case, give me the cost. It doesn't work that way. So you should allow for failure. And at ThoughtWorks, we celebrate failure. There are a couple of internal conferences we do where people come and talk only about failure. Things that they thought was right, but they failed, and what did they learn from it. Entrepreneurs, failure would be a very, very good word. The number of times you failed actually defines how successful you are going forward. Last but not the least is don't be on the sidelines of this digital complexity that you're hitting. You should lead that change. right? You might be a business analyst in your current role. But what is needed in the next 5 years are leaders. We don't need functional experts. I've heard terms like BAs who code, developers who write stories, and project managers who can do a bunch of things, right? So what is the identity of a product owner or a BA in that world is slightly unknown to me, because I don't think there'll be pure play BAs left anymore, because as we talk about full stack developers, I'm sure there is some other full stack that's coming your way where relevance of a product owner and relevance of a business analyst will be questioned. It may transform into something else, but the whole idea is people are not looking for BAs. People are looking for leaders in this world called the digital world. Right? This is an interesting quote from Larry Page, where he says that people or businesses die because they miss to know what the future looks like. Right? Now, as individuals, this is a very important thing. One, and this happens quite naturally at ThoughtWorks, but not every organization is ThoughtWorks. Not every organization is built the way we are built, because genetically we are built very differently as compared to many organizations. But you'll be successful if you are capable of building trusting relationships with everyone that you're working with, your customers and your stakeholders. Because typically these days, with digital world, you will be cross-cutting across business functions. You're not writing something for only the marketing team or the finance team. You should be quite capable of building relationships across. If you have that wider lens that I talked about business, then this is easier to create. The other stylistic thing where DA should definitely work on is on collaborative leadership. So gone are the days when project manager is supposed to be the senior most person on the team. At ThoughtWorks, there's a running joke that we have project managers when we need to order pizza. Otherwise, the team is quite capable of delivering a solution. Collaborative leadership is that about giving everyone a voice. It's about collaborating across the value chain of the organization. And last but not the least, experiment efficiently. So if you think there is a problem worth solving, go ahead and solve it. You might fail or you might be wrong, but not doing it is a crime in the future world. So experiment efficiently. The efficiently part is you're not experimenting for 6 months. You're pivoting around an idea. There's gone are the days when you put a business case together to tell your management that this is a problem. So I answer the question on what will be my role 5 years from now. These are the things that come to my mind from a tech perspective, because we work in the technology space. Different businesses have different ways of how they want to change. But you need to see the big. You should read. I don't know how many of you have read Elon Musk's biography. Electricity from solar. The guy doesn't know rockets. The guy doesn't know cars. The guy doesn't know a bunch of things that he's doing. I don't know if you know what he's building next. Being smarter. So Neuralink is an injectable mesh. That's what Elon Musk is next betting on. So he says, why should machines be smarter? I would use machine to make humans smarter. So it's that space that he's working on. Now, does he know all of this? Has he studied all of this? No. But he has the capability of collaborative leadership where he surrounds himself with people who know this. Stuff that comes out of Singularity University. Peter Diamandis, the guy that I spoke about exponential leadership. Singularity University is one of those spaces where they look at the future in a very positive for the future. And every time I read something that comes out of Singularity University, your salaries are not paid by your employers. The salaries are paid by customers. And that's another level. Last but not the least, no one is going to hire salespeople. It is the world of generic capabilities with obviously some functional depth, but more breadth to your role rather than depth. Depth will be respected, but breadth will be very, very important. So invest your time in becoming a leader than becoming a functional expert. Thank you. Any questions? I can take questions.
How is companies going to evaluate the capability of the leader? On what basis? So, project managers, you have a very specific things to evaluate. But the leaders which you are mentioning here are actually someone who is going to contribute to the next level, where the evaluation is more open, kind of something.
In our world, again, we are genetically built differently, and it's a shameless plug about ThoughtWorks in here. It was positive in some way or form. So I think the definition itself is going to change.
Just adding on to that question
thing is, right now we are being evaluated by number of hours, right? Like you work 40 hours a week and then you get paid X for it. And that's how companies evaluate you. But as and when you move to that leadership stage, or in 5 years, as you say, that the concept of business outcome will outweigh the fixed salary phenomenon. The problem, or at least the ambiguity I see right now in fact, my roles or 5 years down the line is the business outcome is a very subjective thing. Okay, so it's not a very sure thing, and you cannot predict that. Okay, this is the normalized business outcome, and because of addition of say Jayesh, we got an extra lift of X. It's a lot about perception management, and hence the whole process of evaluating a particular employee is going to be much more subjective than what it is right now. That is what I hypothesize. I'm not sure, and that's why.
So, when we are consulting with global best and also locally, so two things. First, what kind of contracts are being written? Right? When I'm talking to a company which makes the best engines in the world, we are in conversations with them. They have come to us and said, you know who we are? Yeah, you make the best engines in the world. No, you got it wrong. We don't make the best engines in the world. People buy us because they want to buy power by the hour. We are a power company. So then what happens to the engine? Because heavy investment you already made in the infrastructure to make engines. Yeah, but people don't care, right? What they care about is finally what power they get from the engine. So they are paying us for the power and not for the engine. So we have the engines on our books. We have to keep up the machinery. We have to figure out that it doesn't break. We have to make sure that it's always available. And they will only pay us for the power consumed. Right? So when you go to take a haircut, simple example, close to home, do you pay for the experience, for the haircut, for looking good? What do you pay for?
Then again, so the world is not homogeneous. Like,
it is not. So what I'm saying is, where digital comes into play, it will be lot less about perception, because when I am now talking to this engine company which is selling power, the contract that will be written with that engine company for ThoughtWorks, will that be how to maximize that power? Which also means how should I be organized as an organization to start thinking power than engines? Which means what will go back into the setup that I create both at manufacturing and at technology level, where manufacturing and technology has to work hand in hand to deliver as well as aircrafts and cars, right? So I think the whole notion of how we are organized itself will change, because businesses are being expected to deliver something else altogether. They're expected to deliver the experience and the output rather than the input. So we work with high-tech companies where they build great sensors, and they say we want to build platforms for intrusion detection and safety, which means algorithms will figure out whether it's my kid at the door or somebody else at the door. And now I'm selling safety and security and not selling cameras anymore. So when you pivot your output as a business to an outcome, chances of you being organized the same way that you were organized yesterday is very, very unlikely. Hence the question of perception doesn't arise, and hence the question of an individual contributing to the outcome is not a concept in my mind. The concept will be how does that team put together something which goes out there, because an individual cannot possibly change everything because it is cross-cutting. So it's how the businesses will start getting organized around the outcome of the business that it is getting paid for will be important. So perception in my mind is what did that team do to create an impact which was exponential than just linear. So I think organizations will change the way they organize teams.
so you mean to say that the bonus will be based on team performance much more than your individual?
I think performance is slightly tricky. So it goes to HR territory. I think bonuses se zyada compensation. So I'm not even going to bonuses. Compensation will be on impact rather than input, because customers are not buying input. Customers are buying impact and output. So as you go back, I think compensation will be more about impact and outcome rather than input of hours that you put. So the whole concept. So where does 8 hours come from? Have you ever thought about why 8 hours? Why not 12 hours? Why not 20 hours? Why not 30 hours a week? Or why 40 hours? Have you thought about that? It comes from manufacturing. It's just organized that way. We took the concepts of manufacturing, applied to IT industry. Now those concepts are getting challenged, that it is not about per person per hour working for 8 hours, which will give an output. You can work 20 hours, you could do something. You could work 1 hour smartly, and you could do probably the same thing. It's that person who does it more efficiently who gets recognized, or that team that does it more efficiently that gets recognized. Because crowdsourcing is a great concept that you probably don't even know your team member. He might be sitting in Eastern Europe somewhere, or in Brazil somewhere, or in Africa, or in India, but they can come together and create software and can be delivered. And contract working on these platforms is quite prevalent now. You just put an idea out there and just take a bunch of capabilities globally. How do they get paid? I'm sure they don't get paid on just per hour. Eventually, they'll get paid on the output that they put out. I'm working with a bunch of folks, not paid globally. So your drummer could be sitting in another part of the world, your singer could be sitting in another part of the world, and they could do a live concert, streaming it live to the world or to some part of the world which is awake at that point. So those are the possibilities. And I'm sure the drummer doesn't get paid for playing the drums for 4 hours. He get paid for the experience that they're delivering.
Any more questions? My question is related to the pipeline. Students coming out of colleges and joining companies. Given the changes potentially that will take place in the next 5 to 10 years, how equipped do you think the system currently is to handle that kind of revolutionary change?
There are two parts of that system. One is the education system itself, and second is the system that consumes what comes out of the education system. Right? So the system that consumes what comes out of the education system is already feeling the heat, because I think Gen Y, Gen Z, I have forgotten what generation is going on, doesn't come to the workplace to earn a salary alone. Most of the younger crowd is coming to find meaning, to find relevance, to find balance where they could do many more things. So a lot of people at ThoughtWorks that we have want to be involved in a lot of impact programs outside of the work that they're doing, or impact programs within the organization that we are trying to do for society. So if you're trying to make healthcare better, and Hyderabad office of ThoughtWorks is trying to do a bunch of things around healthcare. How could we take healthcare to people who don't have access to it? We take it for granted because we have money, right? So people look for those kind of experiences where they could have a meaningful impact, where they try to find meaning at a workplace. They're definitely not coming now to just earn a salary or write software solutions. So the nature of the workforce itself is changing, and we are putting a lot of effort in trying to create environment which is conducive for people to find the right balance between work they do and the impact that they have. And it could be probably possible in the project that they're working on, or probably something that they want to have access to. So a lot of people at ThoughtWorks these days, especially the younger ones, are joining in for meaning than employment alone. A lot of people want to experience the world, not that I want to go on site, but they want to go and really experience a space, a place that they go to. So workplaces we see are definitely transforming. You like it or not, people are coming into the workforce and changing the dynamics. On educational side, there's a very, very interesting TED talk. I forget the name. I probably will let you know after this talk is over. Where a gentleman from UK talks about the education system and the issues with the education system. What he talks beautifully is when we start our education in kindergarten, we are taught how to use our entire body. In music, you also learn other things. By the time you finish your engineering, all the body parts are neglected. The only one part that is focused upon is the brain. And we just forget how to express ourselves. So I think education system will have to go through a big revamp in a way we have not imagined, where we'll have to start giving equal attention to sports, arts, and technology in some sense, including your physics, chemistry, science, and math, where there's a balance where you are creating rather than just learning and coming in and applying those concepts. So a lot of parents that I meet these days have started putting kids to schools called Earth schools or experiential schools, or those kind of things. Rabindranath Tagore had a concept like that, right? Those concepts just went away, disappeared, right? Where kids just learn on their pace. A lot of parents are doing homeschooling these days. I recently met a colleague of mine after a decade, and a decade back I was laughing at him because he took that decision to homeschool his kids. I was like, homeschool, what's that? And how are you going to keep a timetable? How are you going to teach? Where are they going to write exams? We'll figure out that. I just feel that there's too much stress in the system. 10 years back. When I met him 10 years hence, his son is a doctor who cures patients through food, natural food. And he went and figured out where this education was given, and he found the source and got educated. His daughter is an architect which believes in environmental friendly living and how to bring farmers from villages who have lost their land and apply them in urban spaces. And she runs something called as urbanmali.com. So we get farmers and make them landscaping artists. So these kids are doing very, very good for themselves. And I truly believe that where our education system is going, we are probably going to see a lot more of that, where every kid is given space to perform and find meaning. So when they come to the workplace's definition itself will change. I'm not saying businesses are going away, just they'll be organized very, very differently. Somebody's put a board up saying time's up. I'm here. I'm here for a few minutes, so I can definitely talk to all of you. Thanks a lot. I hope this was helpful for you.
Thanks a lot, Jayesh. I know it kept a lot of us thinking. So it was a great talk. We have a small token of gratitude. So, Vishnu, if you can present to Jayesh. Right. We'll move on to our next segment. We'll have group discussions